listening to the Love Always Faithful podcast. We are back with another episode and another great conversation. And this is a great conversation. I'm so excited to just unwrap this conversation with you all. We are going to be speaking with someone that I met not too long ago, I think about a year or two ago, when I was visiting Chicago again. And his name is Gianmarco. So Gianmarco is here with us. Gianmarco, say hello. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Gianmarco. I am a born-again Christian, and I believe in Jesus. I believe in the resurrection of Jesus, and I believe that I'm saved by the blood of Christ. And I'm just an average guy like everybody else.
Yeah. So Gianmarco, you truly are an average guy. I'm an average guy as well. And so, what do you do for a living?
That's actually interesting. I work as a software engineer, and I work on credit cards and machines that process them, or point of sale. So software that can process credit cards, or machines that process credit cards. So it's a long stack, but basically software that works with credit cards.
So all POS stuff, basically.
Yeah, POS, yeah.
Cool, very cool. And you married, you got kids?
Yeah, I have a wife and an awesome son. He's 7 months old, and his name's Gabriel. And I have my wife, Samantha, that I met like 2 years ago, right before COVID started, or when COVID started, I guess.
So this is if you've been a listener of our podcast for a while, this isn't Gianmarco's first time on. This is actually the second time, because the first time he was on, it was we had interviewed him and his wife. A lot of people know her by Mitha, and we were actually visiting Chicago, and we did a podcast with them. And if you want to hear more about their story and how they came together, you can listen back to that. That was in season 1. But it was an amazing story about how they came together during the pandemic and during COVID, and now they're married. They have a beautiful son. He's how many months? 7 months, is it?
7 months, yeah.
7 months. So God has been doing some awesome things in their lives. And while we were meeting, when we got to know Gianmarco, when we were there in Chicago, we got to hear this interesting story about how you came to know Christ. And I was so fascinated by it. I was like, this is going to be a future episode. So we finally got around. We were supposed to do this, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Our schedules are finally kind of aligned, so we can get this conversation. And so Gianmarco had told me that he was actually an atheist. And so Gianmarco, I wanted to start the conversation there. First of all, let's say how old are you now?
I'm 31.
31. All right. So
I forget sometimes.
I'm at the point where I have to ask my wife. I'm like, am I turning 37 this year? 36? What's happening this year? But it's crazy how that happens the older you get. I just think that there's so many other things that are happening in your life. You can't remember even your age. Your brain power is going to all these other things. But so Gianmarco, I want to ask you, why were you atheist? How does one become an atheist? Like, when was the moment that you woke up and said, I'm an atheist?
I think it was continual. So I remember going to Catholic school as a younger boy, and I was maybe in first grade, and I found out Santa Claus wasn't real, and I was like, oh, well, Jesus probably isn't real either. And I just felt like a lot of the stuff I was taught just couldn't have been true, or I just didn't believe a lot of it. And I really disliked church. I thought it was boring. Now, mind you, this is like 9 years old, or however old you are in first grade. And that just kind of is where that kind of started, like that seed was planted, and it just kind of progressed on and on. I want to say by junior high, I would like not believe in God, but ask him for help. And I feel like I never really got help. And I would just get angry at him and hate him. And it doesn't really make sense when I say it now, but at the time, I guess it did as a kid, I was like, God can't be real because he doesn't answer my prayers. And then I wouldn't believe in God, but I'd still pray to him. It just, I was at a really bad place in my relationship with Jesus. I had a lot of trouble growing up. I believe in grade school was the first time I got a suspension. I We were making crosses out of like clothespins that you hang on those lines, and we are gluing them to paper. And this was like in like third or fourth grade or something. And I made a dagger out of mine, and I was like pretending to stab all the other students. And my teacher's like, "You never ever use Jesus as a weapon, ever." And she threw me out in the hall, and then I had like a week-long suspension. And this was at a Catholic school, so they really didn't like that at all. And it was just like one thing after another. Like one time I told my teacher to go spy on Hitler. Like I just had no respect for authority, just zero respect. And it wasn't just my teachers, it was my poor parents too. Just no respect for them either.
Man, so you were a wild
Um,
child.
yeah, yeah, I was. I was. It's not even a joke. I remember when I was like 10, me and a friend of mine went into the garage and we found random cans of chemicals that my dad was using, and we poured it on the ground, lit it on fire, and rode my skateboard through it, and the wheels caught on fire. We're like, oh yeah, that's so cool. I mean, one time we found bullets, we were hitting it with a hammer at that age. Like just,
What?
oh yeah, we were nuts. I don't know how I survived, honestly. Um, but yeah, it was we were not good kids. I wasn't. And I was typically the one to start that, I feel like, to instigate it.
Mhm.
And that pattern continued on for a while. Um, so I could keep going, but junior high was rough. Like there was a point. So I left that the Catholic schools, went to public school, and it
And
was kind
and
of rough.
that was in middle school when you went to public school.
Yes, yes. Yeah, thanks. I forgot to mention that. That was in middle school. And that was rough. I mean, like the school I went to, for some reason, there was a ton of fights. So I would get beat up. Everybody would get beat up. You always get into a fight. And my dad just didn't know what to do, and he would get really upset. And well, things at home weren't good either. And I'm like, I guess I really don't have to get into too much detail and just say it was bad all around.
Gotcha.
Um, I had to go to like um a psychiatrist, I believe. Is it a psychologist? The ones that can prescribe medicine? That's a
Okay,
psychiatrist.
I believe
Yeah,
so. Yeah, we'll go with that.
I had to go to one for like depression pills at that age. And
How old were you then? Like what, 14 or no, this middle school, so like what,
maybe
12?
12, maybe 12.
Wow.
I so much stuff happened. I guess I don't really think about it much. Uh I also don't think about it much, so I kind of forget how old I was. But yeah, so must have been, I think I was 12 because it was sixth grade.
But so like along the way though, like I know you had mentioned early on that you would, you didn't believe in God anymore, right? But you were still
Mm-mm.
praying to him, right? You would still like, you didn't believe, but like every now and then you're like, hey, maybe you're true. Maybe you'll
Yeah,
answer this prayer, right? Well, how
yeah.
long were you doing that till? Like, or did you ever get to a point where you just stopped? Like you're like, I'm not even gonna
No,
pray to you
I
anymore.
always did it. I always,
Okay.
the whole time I did that. I never stopped. And that's actually a really funny thing you brought that up. I never thought about that, but I never stopped. At least up to this point, I always did that. I would always get really upset at God, and I'd be like, you can't be real because this was mistranslated, or it's impossible to split the sea or whatever. And this was my young mind. Um, so yeah, it was rough. Like I remember I had to get admitted to the hospital for depression at that age. And it just like seemed to never end. My grades were bad. Every year it felt like they were gonna hold me back. They never did, thankfully. And I had some friends who had it worse. There's like a special school you go to if you're too bad for regular school, and they always tell me like, "Hey man, you're not that bad." So in my mind, I felt like I really wasn't that bad of a kid. Though looking back, I feel like I was. I feel like I could have done a lot of things differently. I could have really had a different attitude, but so anyways, so junior high just wasn't great. And I remember one weekend, I don't know why, but my parents kind of gave up on disciplining me and just took me out to the movies. And I just didn't misbehave that week. And then
Hmm.
that pattern continued. And I'd say by like eighth grade, I was kind of getting normal again. Like I was having normal grades. I was happy again. I was starting to make friends. People were inviting me over. Like other parents, like weren't like concerned about me coming over. In fact, some adults were starting to trust me with like chores, things like that, and things were looking really good. I even got invited to youth group with some friends, and there I kind of got exposed to a more calm sort of uh, environment with God, with in those days, like with the Jesus, as I would see it. And
But you were still, even though you were being invited to like these youth groups and stuff, were you still like, I'll go, whatever, it's social,
yeah,
but I
I'll
don't
go.
believe in God.
Yeah, I was just like, you're my friend, I'll go. Or like, this seems really fun, or maybe there'll be girls there or something like that. So,
That's a lot of
um,
reasons why young guys go to church. It's like
I
maybe
gotta
there's girls there.
I gotta say, like youth group is so awesome.
Oh yeah.
I remember I went, I had such a good time, and like just a shout out to everybody working with kids. That's part of the reason why I married my wife. I'm so impressed by people who do that because you have no idea what some kids are going through.
Hmm.
Some kids probably, like me, had it all and just were so unhappy. I mean, there's not an excuse for it, but they're still unhappy. They're still suffering. And I really looked forward to youth group when I did go, which it was like maybe 2, 3 times a year. It wasn't often, but I would go. Um, so then high school rolls around, and I had a lot of close people in my life that were bad influences.
Mm.
Um, and so started doing drugs. Um,
And when that start, like early freshman year, or it took a little
I
bit
think it
into
was
your high
like the
school?
middle of freshman year. Yeah. It wasn't even like I was pressured. It was just like, well, that looks fun. I just thought it would be fun. Next thing I know, I'm just like going to parties all the time and you know, doing lighter drugs, and then someone would be like, "Oh, do you want to try this drug?" And I'd be like, okay." Then I try the next level drugs. I mean, and it just kind of went on and on and on. It just kept I kept doing more and more intense things. Like, one weekend it was smoking a cigarette, and like just a year later, it's like taking pills and breaking them up.
Wow.
And just it just really escalated quick within like a year. And honestly, I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and you can imagine what happened. Uh, I thought I was having fun. I was living the life, but the outside of my life, like outside of what I saw, it was the same things. My grades were slipping. My parents were trying. They tried so hard. They really did. I don't. I mean, they definitely weren't perfect, but they tried so hard. And I mean, some people just want to be bad. I don't, I hate to say that, but not every kid is going to or wants to do well. And I definitely didn't. I think part of the reason is I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I could ever achieve anything. I just didn't believe it. I was always not great at anything. I was always like just the jack of all trades. I could never like, I wrestled. I could never win state. I participated in art. I could never get like an A plus. I could never do perfect in that class. I just could never do what I wanted to do. And I want to say by junior year was when I started to really go downhill. Um, that was the first time, I think that was the first time I got arrested and put in jail, which it wasn't, I'm sorry, it wasn't jail, it was like a holding cell. That was the first time I saw the inside of a cell. And the a state trooper came and got me, and he's just like shaking his head the whole time. And he didn't really say much to me. And then he called my dad, and then my dad came and picked me up. I think it was around Thanksgiving, my junior year.
And so for what reason did you get put into that holding cell?
I had an ounce of weed. So I know these days weed isn't a big deal, but in those
Yeah,
days it was
yeah,
a felony. Like
yeah.
you got in
It's,
big
it's
trouble for having
especially
that.
like in Chicago and the suburbs
Yeah.
of Chicago and things like that. Yeah,
And I didn't have like this much. I had an ounce, which is back in those days, that was I can't remember how much it was, but it must have been like $200 or
yeah,
$100 or something. It was not cheap.
yeah. That was
And
that was a that was a big deal. So yeah, I mean, you're there, you're in this jail cell. So you're in a place, right, where you don't believe in God, right? You're also in a place where you don't believe in yourself, right?
yeah,
So you're in this place, and I think that I really think that a lot of the things that you were dealing with and going through is a lot of things that a lot of teenagers deal with, right? There's this sense of like, who am I, right? It's like finding your identity, right? And so you try a bunch of different things. Like I remember when I was young, man, I had my hip hop phase, I had my punk rock phase, I had my alternative phase. I'm listening to Google Dolls and, and like, like I had my underground hip hop phase where I didn't listen to the, it's like I would be very snobby about it. Like, oh, you listen to Jay-Z. I listen to like guys that are not even on the radio. Like you don't even know these guys that I listen to. So like,
like
you know,
you don't
I,
know who Nirvana is, dude.
yeah,
You don't even
like
know Nirvana.
so it was just like I was just trying everything just to kind of find out exactly, who I am. So I think that you're in that place, right? You don't believe in God, you don't even believe in yourself, and you're just trying to discover who you are. So it's kind of like you're just open to anything, really, right? And so you end up in the jail cell, right, or the holding cell,
Yeah,
and
so
your
I was
dad.
only that time I was only there for a night. So I was drunk too. So I had a DUI and an ounce of weed. So it was not good. It
It was
was
not good, yeah.
no, that was bad. And so everyone was pretty lenient with me. Like they gave me probation. And I can't believe an adult did this, but an adult told me, "Hey, do whatever you want before 18. You can't get your record will wipe." So that's what I did.
Wow.
And I had no idea. Like I didn't even know really what a record was. For all I knew, it was a piece of paper in a file cabinet, and they tore it when you turn 18.
I
I
mean,
didn't know.
you're still a child, so like,
I
why
had
would
no
you
idea.
know?
But
Yeah.
some adult, I won't say his name, but someone told me that, and that was really bad. Shame on them. They shouldn't have said that. I'll never say that to a kid. I mean, just that's terrible. But yeah, so he told me that, so I was like, oh, the wheels were turning in my
Yeah.
head. I was like, I can do whatever I want, except like murder somebody.
Yeah.
But I can do whatever I want. And that's what I did. I mean, there was like, I don't know how this is even a thing, but apparently there's clubs for 16-year-olds, and I would go to them,
Yeah, I
you
remember
know,
that.
yeah, and I would take pills. I mean, everybody knows what I would be taking. And I had a blast. I mean, I loved it. Play games high, do that high. I do a lot of stuff high, but we're still progressing. Like we're still getting worse and worse and worse, and it's just one thing after another.
But what
Um,
for you? What was that entry drug? Like, what was the drug that like got you in, and then now like a lot of people call it a gateway. Like, I hear a lot of people say marijuana is kind of like gateway drug, but what was it for you?
Probably weed,
Yeah,
marijuana. Yeah.
yeah, it's common.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually think it's too bad, but I do think that it's like the crowd. It's like the people, it's like there's just not in those days when it was illegal, there just wasn't a good crowd around it. It's not like it's not like it's not like I'm trying to think of what's it I forget what they classify heroin as, or like codeine, or it's not like some of those drugs where like you get like sick when you quit, you know, or you go a little
Oh,
crazy.
you have withdrawals and things like that.
Oh yeah, withdrawals. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
word for it. But it's not like that. Like it's not like you take it and you're like wishing, oh my God, I wish I wasn't high on this. I just want to come down. You
Yeah.
know, it's you know,
So
it's kind of a different world in my opinion, but it's definitely introduces you to how it starts and you learn like how like the rituals behind it. You know, you find the group of people, you all do it together. That's my cat. But but anyways,
so it led to you, now you're in a place where now you're progressing, now you're
I'm
doing the
just
pills.
it just keeps going up. And this was like junior year. And for some reason, after this all happened, I kind of just wanted to stop. Like I stopped hanging out with all my friends. I stopped doing all drugs for a couple months. And I tried to get into boarding school because I just wanted to get away from it. It was like when I was clear-headed and sober, I knew that it was bad for me. But when I was doing it every day, and when it was, I never wanted to quit. So when I got that break, because I started to break after I went to jail for a few months. It was only a few months. I asked my dad to send me to boarding school, and he wasn't able to get me in. And I was like, man, I think I got to get out of here. And someone asked me if I wanted to hang out, smoke a little weed, you know, drank a little. Next thing you know, I'm progressing again. And this time it was really fast. In fact, this time it got so fast, I didn't have enough money to do it. So naturally, I started selling drugs. And I would buy enough to go to a party, sell it all, and do some myself. And then, you know, uh, and then pay for myself and sell it to other people, and it was not good. I'm honestly not super proud of that time in my life, but you know, it wasn't great. I guess word got around town that I was doing that, and there was a point where I um, bought like 30 hits of acid off a guy, and someone wanted to buy like a lot of it, or I don't know how many it was, but it was a large chunk. And I didn't know who they were, but I knew the person who wanted me to get it, and I won't name names or give away any details, but uh I know who it was. I know who everyone was, but you know, I'll get into that later. But
Yeah.
real quick, you know, I'm a follower in Christ. I don't vengeance isn't mine.
Yeah.
But so I guess word got around, and an undercover cop was that guy that wanted to buy it from me, and I sold
He
it
was
to
the
him.
buyer.
He was the buyer, and I sold it to him. And I was 17, and I was still in school, and I got set up. And like after the deal was done, I turned my car on, and cop cars came from everywhere. And I mean, I feel like I was still a kid at this point. Like I couldn't believe this.
Yeah.
Guys came at us with guns, dogs. I mean, like ready to shoot us, you know. And
It's like something out of a movie, right?
I felt like it was. I am not going to pretend like I remember it perfectly, but I'd say there was at least 2 or 3 cop cars and at least 6 cops. I'm sure there's paperwork somewhere. Someone could read about it and figure it out. But yeah, the cops didn't play. You know, they had their guns raised, and they came at me. And I, I guess I don't want to get into too many details because I don't
No,
know
you're fine.
about other people that were involved. And but after this, I can give all the details you want. But then I went to jail, and now I can start giving out more details.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to say.
So what are you thinking? Like you get like whoop whoop whoop, they all come up on you, and now you're, I'm sure, at the back, in the back of a cop car, and you're headed to jail. Like, what are some of your immediate thoughts, if you even remember what you were thinking at the time?
Well, I was high on acid.
Okay. So
So I was incredibly calm, but I remember I was thinking, I I can't make this up. At the time, I was thinking, cool, I'm gonna get more connections in jail and prison.
wow.
That was my
Wow.
thought process.
Wow. Because I mean, at that
Cops,
point, you're so far in, right? You're so far in, and you're under the the influence. So that's also playing with your mind as far as your mindset.
look, I'm not against TV and I'm not against like movies and stuff, as long as you can separate reality from what's not real. And I clearly couldn't. And I just like always watched Scarface or whatever drug movie. And I was just thought I was like a gangster or something. I didn't have any tattoos or a gun, but it's like when you're a kid, I guess maybe some 17-year-olds were more developed or smarter than me. I think most were. But at that time, that's just, I mean, I'm just telling you the truth, man. That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. And so at what point, like, everything's gonna happen, right? There's gonna be, they're gonna bring you in, and things are gonna escalate from there once they start, pointing the evidence towards you and stuff like that. So at what point does it kind of sink in? Like, hold up, this is not like the movies. This is like, it's about to get real here.
That's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked that because a lot of people don't know to ask that question because that happens to a lot of kids when they get arrested. If they get due, it doesn't sink in till a certain moment. For me, it was when I got there, I got my phone call and I called my parents, and my mom was crying. And I can't remember what she said. I think she just told me that she loved me, something like that. And I hadn't really heard my mom cry like that. Like it was sobbing.
Mm,
And I think that was it when I was like, well, I'm on my own.
mm.
So that then I started to break down a little bit, start crying, stuff like that. But people might laugh, but the guys in jail were actually really nice to me. Like a lot of them were like, they kept calling me shorty or
Sure.
like or something or stuff like that.
I
Or
mean,
like
when I met you, you weren't that short, so I don't know where that came from.
I think I was this tall, but I think it was like 140. So I
Okay,
think they all knew that I was young and they just
gotcha.
kept they were kind of, I don't know. I thought shorty is just kind of like what you call like a young
Yeah,
guy.
like a young guy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's and I didn't know that. I didn't grow up in the hood.
yeah,
But a lot of them were pretty nice to me. Like, of course there were some uh jerks.
yeah.
So but a lot of them had kids.
Mm,
So a lot of them are, oh boy, I'm gonna say it, good guys.
yeah.
You
I mean,
know?
a lot of those guys too. Like, they're not horrible people. They just
No,
they
no, they're
make a
not.
bad decision and they get caught on it. They get caught in that bad decision, or they've made, uh, or they've become, they've come into their life where they make a pattern of bad decisions, and it catches up to them. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard the same thing from other people that've been in jail and stuff like that, where they're like, and some people, that they're there too, they get set up, then it wasn't even, that it was that one moment of desperation that put them in the place that they end up in, right? They still
Right.
did the crime, but it was like a moment of desperation, like, I need this for this, or whatever the case may be. But
Right.
so,
I I do have one important thing I gotta say.
yeah, go ahead.
Um, when I was getting booked, so I'll just explain it for people. So, like, when you go to the airport and there's just all these security guards and all these rooms you can't go into and things like that. It's
Hmm.
kind of like that, but in a much cheaper building that's gonna have a lot more metal bars in it. But it's pretty similar. I mean, they like also are way more intense, but they ask you a series of questions, and one of them, well, let me backtrack. The guy ahead of me in line to get booked, he like kind of turned his head like this and leaned. He's like, "Hey, say you're suicidal, they'll treat you better." So I went in and I that's what I told them. They're like, "Are you suicidal?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, definitely." And because I had that phone call, I knew I was on my own. So I was looking out for myself and I wanted to just get through it. Um, so that's what I told them. So, they did the usual. They well, they strip you down, take your clothes, give you a new set of clothes. That's what they did for everybody else. For me, they gave me a smock. And if you don't know what a smock is, it's basically a padded blanket that looks like a kilt. And it's just one blanket, if you can imagine it, that's like 4x4. And there's little armholes. You stick your arms in it and then you tuck the Velcro like that. And that's all you got. No underwear, nothing.
What?
So that's what I ended up in. And yeah, I just want to clarify that detail because it's kind of important going forward, because that's like, you know, that's how I got in. Like that's how I went in. That was like my first impression. Um, so I go to my cell, and I think the first guy that was in there was not a good guy at all.
Mhm.
But he did like go to church, and he actually talked to me about it a little bit, and I just wrote him off and didn't really listen. And he was gone within a few hours, I think. And then I was in the cell by myself for a few days, like 2 days. And then I learned that you're allowed to have one book, like a religious book. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'll take a Bible, I'll take anything." Because I was in this cell that was like maybe 8 feet by like 7 feet, I
Okay.
would say, or maybe like 10 feet by 8 feet. I don't know the exact dimensions. It wasn't big.
No, yeah.
Pretty
I mean, you're 6 foot, what, 2, 6'3"?
6'2" or 6'1", somewhere in there.
So like, yeah, you lay down, you only have what, 8 inches or so
Yeah, I
to
was no,
spare.
you sleep in like the fetal position. It's pretty small, and you don't sleep on like a bed. It's just this metal sheet bolted into the wall with a mat that's about this thick.
Oh, boy.
And all I had was my smock, no blanket, no nothing. And so I was bored. So I got a Bible, and originally I was, maybe some people will laugh at this, but I was playing with it. I like made origami, like made like a little soccer ball out of the paper, and I was kicking it around and stuffed the vent with paper to help warm up the cell, because there was a vent. They keep it super cold. It's some strategy they have. It's like people smell bad because they don't shower. I can only imagine why they do it, but so I stuffed the paper in the vent. I just got so bored. I read it. I just couldn't take it anymore.
So after
I
after playing soccer with it, after doing
Yeah, all that
origami,
stuff.
you
Yeah,
finally said, I guess I might as well read this thing.
I just couldn't take it. I was so bored. I read it from front to back, and I want to say by the time I got to the New Testament, I was on my knees crying, and I gave myself to God, and I said that, Jesus, I believe in you, and I am sorry. And a voice came in my head, and it just said, think of all the people you hurt and everything you did. And I thought of, at the time, my younger sister, who was like, she must have been like 5 or 4. I mean, it just, and I feel like we're pretty close. And that was pretty stupid, everything I did. That's when it started to hit me. Like, that's when I started to realize like what I did. And I started to appreciate the police officers. Like, you'll notice that at this point my mindset starts changing about the police officers. Like, at this point I start to realize like everything they're going through. I start to realize like the inmates they're just people, man.
Yeah.
I start to realize like my parents, I might not have seen them like feeding me and providing me with a house and stuff, but they did it. And it took a few weeks for all this to really sink in, and I was reading, it took me like a few days to read the whole Bible from front to back. So chronologically, I started somewhere in the Bible. I think it was when the New Testament was around, was when I just got on my knees, because I didn't know I didn't know what being saved was. I didn't even know that was a thing. I had no idea. I was raised Catholic. Nothing against Catholics, great people. But I had no idea what any of that, I didn't know. I had no idea. By the time I got to the New Testament, it really clicked with me. In fact, I was amazed afterwards, after I got out of jail, after all that, at how similar my beliefs are to most Christians today. I couldn't believe it just from reading the Bible. I didn't even know a lot of the stuff that they had said. But let me get back to the story. So you know, it's like a few days after I get saved, weeks go by, and I start to respect the police officers. I know what I did was wrong. Um, but you know, I'm not in a place where you can where where like you can you know, cry on like your family's shoulder, or like I'm not in a place where you can be soft per se. Like
No,
you
yeah,
can't
you have to
sense.
keep a tough
Oh
exterior.
yeah. Oh yeah. I had long hair. I cut it like the first day I was there, which isn't really related to me being a Christian, but I did get like have a tough exterior when I was in there. And I tried my best to not put up with crap and be a Christian. And it was really hard. Like there were times, like one time I broke down in front of all the guys, and then, you know, someone was just kind of telling me, damn dude, I wish you hadn't have done that. You know, just it was, you can't for a second look weak. And I was 17 this whole time. I was 17. One of the cops found out, and he was like, dude, how are you here? This is an adult jail. Like, how are you here? And I guess he was younger and he didn't know that, but you can at 17 be treated like an adult if your crime is serious enough.
Wow.
So
So you weren't in juvie, you were with adults. You were grown
yeah, I
men.
was with adults. Yeah, I was, oh, sorry if I didn't make that clear. I
Wow.
was with adults. Yeah. So I've never seen juvie. I've never been there. Um
So how long
so yeah,
how long were you in jail? Um
this time
yeah, like this time, how long were you in jail? And then like how do you end up getting out?
7 months. I got out because so I didn't have any. I talked to my mom and my cousin. That was it. And they just like called me and sent me letters. They didn't like give me commissary or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, shout out to my mom. She is just, there are no words I can say in thanks for that, because that was a hard time. I don't think people really understand how hard that can be. So it was like 6.5 months or 7 months. I don't have the exact numbers, but I took a program called Task. And what that is if you were high when you did the crime, which I definitely was, you can get your record wiped, and then you can go to a halfway house, yeah, sorry, a rehab, and then they will put you on probation for 5 years. And if you behave and don't commit another crime, they will seal your record,
Wow.
which is legally, you know, you can know what I did, but you can't not hire me because of it. I'll sue you and I'll win. You can't do that. So you can try. So, um, but I was pretty smart. So like I was kind of like reading law books and stuff, and I was reading a lot of books and I learned a lot. Like I was never the brightest person, but after I got saved, I just really clung to Proverbs. And Proverbs talks a lot about how wisdom is like gold. And you know, I don't know if anybody's ever tried to find gold, but it's hard. You got to dig for it. And when you find it, you know, you don't just like hand it off to people. You wear it around your neck and you keep it, and it's, you know, it's very valuable. And that's what I did. I tried to find knowledge. So I asked my mom to send me books on like everything, on psychology, on medicine, on math, on drawing, on history, on everything. I mean, she even sent me a book on like a story about veterinaries. Like I just love to learn. And I read a lot about uh, this task program.
Wait,
And
so you found out about the program because of a book your mom sent you?
I found out, I don't remember how I found out. I think, gosh, man, I don't remember how I found out. I don't remember. I think an inmate told me. I
Okay.
can't remember. I think you get a DA, and I think someone told me about it, like an inmate, and brought it up to the DA, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And I think they were pushing for me to get boot camp because they're like, "It'll be better for you. You'll get out faster. The military might take you." I was like, "No, I want to seal my record. I want to clean my record. I don't believe. I didn't feel like I needed to be held down forever by this.
Mm.
I felt like I could move on. I felt like I could be a part of society. I felt like I could be reinstitutionalized, like reformed.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't accept that. I've always been really stubborn, and I will, like, if I want to do something, I'll do it. I might not be the best, but I'll do it. Um, yeah. So I think that's how I found out.
And
And
so that program is what essentially gets you out at 7 months.
yeah. And this whole time I was starting to get my GED because I was barely passing high school, and I didn't pass high school. Obviously, you drop out if you don't show up for like 10 days or something. So
Yeah.
obviously I was a dropout. I was studying for the GED. I just was really working really hard. And I actually was able to support myself by drawing. I would draw portraits and things for people so they could send it to their loved ones or their children, and they would pay me like 10, $20 a pop.
Really?
Yeah, they were really like, I feel like drawing is not like riding a bike where you can just pick it up again, but if you sit there and do it for like 4 hours a day, you will get good at it.
Yeah. Well, that's impressive, man, that you were able to kind of do. I mean, so man, if you think about it, and I'm not sure that you would agree with this in the moment, but being removed from that, by 10 plus years, um, it's almost as if, like, although you were in a place where you were locked up, you were in a place where you didn't have that much space, and your liberties were kind of taken from you. It was really a moment that you really grew. Like, right, it's almost that growing out of that kid and growing into, like, a young adult,
Yeah.
growing in your character, growing in your relationship with God and your spirituality and all that stuff like that. So it's almost like God was looking out for you by sending that cop that set you up.
Oh, I forgot to say this. So I don't think this cop will mind, but the same cop that caught me at 16 for the DUI and the ounce of weed, when they brought me, the guys that set me up at 17, when they brought me to the jail, they just weren't sure if they wanted to put me in jail. That state cop was there in that jail. And he looked at me, he said, "Oh, yeah, I know this guy. I've picked him up before." And that's when they're like, "Book him."
But you know what? That, like, those were the chain of events that led to you coming to Christ and your life being completely changed, right? And so, like, man, it's almost like, sometimes we today we were singing at church, the um the worship song that essentially, goes like, God, you take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good, right? And so, like, even maybe, let's say the enemy was trying to use the drugs and trying to use all this crazy lifestyle that you were currently living to destroy you, right? And then God said, all right, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to turn it for good. Like, so although it doesn't look great right now, that same cop that got you when you were 16 is the same cop that's going to mention, hey, I got him when I was 16. And they make the decision to book you. But now you end up in a place where 3 days in, you start reading the Bible. And after a couple of days, you realize the revelation of who Jesus is and what he did for you on the cross comes to you and hits you like a ton of bricks. And now your life is completely transformed. and now you're learning, and now you're doing all these things, and 7 months later, you come to a place where you're free. So like, talk to us about that. Like, what was that like when you get to the point where like you're free? Like, what was that like
Yeah.
walking out?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm skipping so much stuff. A lot of stuff happened in jail, but I can go to that. Because now that I think about it, I'm still 18 at this point. I turned 18 in jail, but there's a lot of stuff afterwards too. So I could talk all day about this, I guess. So yeah, I go to rehab and
So as soon as
if
you get out, they take you straight to rehab.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm. And if you try to like run away or you break the rules of rehab, you lose your task and you go back to jail. And but you gotta be pretty bad for them to you gotta like straight up run away or something, or really break a rule that they really don't like. And I went to the rehab and kept my head pretty low, and that really wasn't even half as bad as jail. I mean, they gave you all the food you wanted and stuff. Honestly, okay, like my gripe is with people who get into these programs and go to this rehab. I think like 99% of them just took advantage of it just
Mm.
because it was like winter and they wanted to stay warm, or like they just didn't want to go to jail. And but they all like everybody I knew that went there, they immediately went back to like doing whatever they were doing. I
Mm.
just couldn't believe it. I was like, you know what? I don't want to get too judgmental on them, but I was I knew where I came from and where I was going.
Yeah.
And I've never been super humble. So I try to not judge people. But I knew myself and I knew what I wanted to do. So we'll just focus on that tonight. But I went to the rehab and I did learn quite a few skills for dealing with drug problems. Now, I have been clean for a long time at this point. And after the rehab, you're looking at like 8, 9 months of me being clean. However,
So how long was the rehab before you continue? How long did you have to the rehab for?
3 months.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah. However, when I was in that rehab, there was a group of Christians that would come in, and they came in from a place called Harvey. It's in Illinois, a town called Harvey
Mhm.
in Illinois. And they had a church, Spirit of God, and they would come in and they would teach like a biblical lesson. And then sometimes guys from that group would stand up and talk. And one time it was a guy that talked, and he talked about a halfway house that church owned. So if people don't know what a halfway house is, it's a place where you can go to live after rehab to kind of get adjusted to normal life. You typically live there for a while, like 6 months to maybe a few years. And like they'll give you a job and they'll like help you get the skills to like get on your feet. Because some people who get out of jail or rehab, they have nowhere to go. And it's hard to get back on your feet at that
And
point and not go back to your old life.
yeah, so they just go back to the life they know, right?
Yeah. So a guy was talking about this place called Harvey House, and he was a great looking guy, like 6'3", looked real healthy. Everybody was super skinny, like we're all like worn out. We had been through some stuff, and this guy just looked like a normal person that you'd see every day. And I was like, I want to be like that. Not only that, but he was like on fire for God. Like he just kept talking about God, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to go to Harvey House. So I had some choices between halfway houses. I applied and got into a lot of them. And I was like, I think I want to go to Harvey House. They weren't sure if they wanted to take me because I was too young, but God had other plans. And I got in, even though like everybody in management didn't like me there. Apparently, like the head pastor's wife thought that I was like a really good looking young man. She's like, oh, bring him in. He's cute. And like all the management was all pissed off, or sorry, they're all mad. They're just like, you can't bring him in because he's cute. And but God had it doesn't matter how I got in there. God has other plans.
Yeah.
And I got in. I got into Harvey House.
So
And
after 3 months of the rehab, so now we're 10 months total, right? With jail and with the rehab.
I think it wasn't exact for any of this stuff. So I think it was like 6 months, three weeks, and then the halfway house was like 2.5 months.
Gotcha.
So I think at this point I went to jail originally in March, and then I went to Harvey House by December.
Okay.
And this was in 2008.
Okay, so now you're in the Harvey House, and so what's that like?
Man, we would need like 10 hours.
Okay, well,
I skipped so much stuff. I skipped a lot of stuff. But
give
that's
us
okay.
So give us the all right. So let's say this: how long were you in Harvey's house? Harvey House.
I was in Harvey House for I think it was like almost 2 years, a year and a half.
Okay, wow. So you were there for a while, and so like while you were there, like how's your faith? Like, is your because this is a Christian halfway house, right? So like, is your faith being grown? Like, do they offer like Sunday we pick you up and you go to the church? Like, how was your faith being grown through this time?
So you can say whatever you want about Harvey House. They've been in the business for a while. They know what they're doing. They really do. And they take away all your stuff. You just have clothes. And they own a thrift store. So anything you need, you can just grab from the thrift store and they'll give it to you. Obviously, you can't grab a pair of new Timberlands. They got to make money. But you need a shirt, a hat, whatever. Get it from the thrift store. They feed you. It's kind of like a boot camp, I guess, except you're not doing exercises, you're more like doing ministry work.
Okay.
So during the day, there's a few different jobs you could do. I worked in the thrift store in the back, loading furniture on top of cars. And then I also worked with the after school ministry with the kids in junior high. And then stuff on the side I would do. I tried to get involved with the boxing club, but I just started to get overwhelmed. It was too much. And then I got involved with the youth group. And I was really happy there. Like my mom, and this was a real milestone. My mom scheduled like a meeting for me to go meet her at like a public library or something. It was like a bookstore, and I got to see Liz. And I mean, Liz kind of knew. Sorry, my younger sister, that was like 6 maybe at this point. She knew who I was, but she kind of like I had been around for a while, like a year, so she was kind of like, "Oh, hey, it's you," and I was really happy.
Well, so was this the first time you seen your mom since you went to jail?
I saw her at the rehab for like an hour. She stopped by.
Okay.
This was the first time I saw my younger sister.
Okay.
Yeah, Harvey House was great. I mean, it had its struggles, but I remember I mean, when I first got there, the guys were all older. Like it was like everyone was over 30. There was one person that was like 27, and then me. So
So it
they
was like
messed with me.
so it was like a common theme, like jail,
Oh my
you're
gosh,
young guy,
dude.
rehab, young guy. Now
Oh
Harvey
my
House, you're the
gosh.
young guy.
Everywhere I went, I was so humbled. I was like Nebuchadnezzar, man. I was eating grass this whole time, man. Just because like they used to make fun of me pretty hard. Like one guy, I mean, I don't want to say anything inappropriate. One guy, one thing that's appropriate is he'd always call me boy genius and talk with a lisp. He'd be like, boy genius is in the room. And like everywhere I went, they'd all say, boy genius, or just stuff like that. And but they kind of took care of me. They really did help me out a lot. And good guys, all of them.
Yeah.
I think that um there was a lot that went on. So there was a lot of drama because a lot of people were dealing with a lot of stuff. There were a lot of guys that came into jail and rehab in the halfway house that died, that didn't make it. There were a lot of guys that went back out there. There were a lot of guys that went back to jail or back to rehab or back to the halfway house. And then there are a few who made it out.
Yeah.
and that was always hard to watch, you know, your friends. I had a friend in there, and it was really sad. I remember they were kicking him out because he failed his drug test when he left for the weekend,
Oh,
and he was a good friend. Like I would wrestle with him sometimes, or he would uh like live with me like every other day, or he would he always would joke with me about like girls, you know. I don't want to get too far into it, but you know,
yeah, yeah.
inappropriate jokes. And I remember when they were kicking him out, man, he hugged me. I didn't know what was happening. I knew he was getting kicked out, but I thought he'd be back. He hugged me and he's like, "Hey man, I'm never gonna see you again." And then he left and he died, man. He overdosed like 2 months later or something like that.
Wow, wow.
There was a lot of that. I've I just feel like I've seen that too much, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but like, so then what was it for you that like you're seeing this, right? And I mean, all these guys, they have decisions to make, right? Everyone makes,
Yeah.
makes their own decisions, right, in their life. So what's keeping you from not making the decision these guys were making, and staying grounded on your newfound faith, and and not going back to that lifestyle?
Can I be entirely honest?
Absolutely.
I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know. I know that when I quit, I definitely had withdrawals. Like I was pretty sick, you know. I like I the only time I felt worse is with really bad food poisoning. One time I thought I was gonna die from food poisoning. I got it so bad once. Almost had to go to the hospital. But um I think that part of what it is I think that there's three pillars in Christianity: faith, love, and hope. And we really focus a lot on love, which is great because it's the most important. But without that faith and without that hope, you know, you're still gonna have some problems.
Yeah. I think that I was just thinking about this the other day. You know, when you look at faith, Jesus says, you have faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love, right? Um, I always thought about that. Like, why is love the greatest, right? Well, then, if we look at love, right, and we look at John 3:16, and where God's, it says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son," right? Well, what our faith is in the salvation that comes through Jesus Christ, right? And our hope is Jesus Christ, and the hope that He actually came. I mean, that's all the Old Testament spoke about the Messiah, right? And the people of God were hoping for their Savior, right? And so all of that comes through faith, comes through love, and hope comes through love. Because if it wasn't for the love of God to give us Jesus Christ, there wouldn't be anything to hope in, and there wouldn't be anything to have faith in. And so, um, yeah, I mean, just like as you said, love is the most important, because without the love of God, the faith and the hope wouldn't exist, right? And that love, without the love, we wouldn't have anything to redeem us for our sins, right? And so, man, I think that's
Well, I'm sorry, but to answer your question, I think that I had hope in my future, and I had a really strong faith in God because I did my homework. So I didn't I had a hard time with science and God, and I was hungry. Like I asked questions. I asked everybody, how can this be possible with evolution and God, this and that.
yeah,
And I think that you need to have faith, hope, and you need to have love,
yeah,
period. But faith and hope sure do help a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, because then I mean, the Bible also says that without faith it's impossible to please God, right? So
Yeah, it
with
says
that,
that.
without believing, right? Like, the Christian faith all comes down to belief, right? And at some point, I mean, there's a lot of things scientifically that you can get into and you can point toward God, but at some point, there's certain things that science cannot explain, And I always tell people always tell me, well, why this, why that? And and sometimes it just comes down to the fact that if I knew the answer to that, then I would be God. I just not going to know the answer, and it's okay not to know the answer. And I think that at some point you have to come to a point where you have to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I have faith in God. I just believe. I believe that He's going to get us through. I believe that He's my Savior. I believe, and at some point, it's just the belief, right? And so, um, I think that that little tangent that we got into is very important for someone who's listening right now, who really needs to hear that, right? Who really needs to hear that faith, hope, and love. So I'm glad you went down that path. Um, so we're at Harvey, right? You were there for about 2 years, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
at what point? So like, how did that work? Was it like you have to be here for 2 years, or was it like at a certain point you can decide I'm good, I want to go on my own?
It's loose. So nothing was legal at this point. And uh, they will let you stay for 6 months if you really want to, but they prefer at least a year. But I mean, some scientists or um, doctors or professional psychiatrists, psychologists, I don't know, might disagree, but they say 18 months is best. And I have to agree. Like it takes a while. It's not it's not all physical, like some of it's mental. You have to like learn how to deal with society. You can't go around punching people when you're upset. You can't go talk to your old friends about the good old days. You can't, whenever you feel bad, deal with it by using drugs. Everybody knows that one, but there's a million things you don't know.
Mhm.
And you have to stay there to learn it over time. You will because of the environment. You'll learn a lot. I mean, not everybody makes it even after the 18 months, but boy, does it help.
So after 2.5 years, you felt like I'm good, and
Oh, yeah, let me continue the story.
yeah.
So, one thing that's important is while I was in Harvey House, at this point, I really zoned in on my GED. And I talked to them there. I was like, can you guys please help me to get my GED? Because I was like 18 at this point, going to be 19 maybe. Maybe I was still 18. And they're like, yeah, yeah, absolutely. So they helped me get my GED by like inviting an instructor for a GED to teach a class. And then like other people joined to get their GED. And then like we got like a grant for it, I believe. And then I was like going to a class to get my GED. And I took the test one time and I passed like after like months of working at it. And I was so proud. Like that was the first time since I like went to jail that I did something. Like I changed my stars. I altered my path. Like I something like great happened. Really great. I was so proud. I was still so happy that that happened. But that was like a year or so in Harvey House, and I immediately asked if I could go to junior college. And at this point, even my parents were starting to get impressed. And they were just like, "Oh, you want to go to junior college?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so they supported me. I got support from my family to go to junior college. And I was going to junior college and going to Harvey House for the next like year, the second year. So, like a few months before I left Harvey House, a group of college kids came to, I don't know, like minister or something, or just hang out.
Mhm.
And like tons of college kids do it, and it's always like the worst because like all of management in Harvey House, like they get their whips out and they're just like, you even do anything to those kids, and you guys are out of here. And like even some of the people running the colleges will be like, don't touch those Harvey House guys, they're dirty. But these guys, they weren't like that one bit. They like slept on the in the boxing club's like ring. They played basketball with us. Like one of us left me his phone number. Like, and I talked to him for like a year or two after that. I mean, they just like they
Did
were they were they treated us like normal people.
they
No
did
one treated. Sorry.
They just loved on you guys, basically.
Dude, I honestly, I still like can't, I still mumble when I talk about it. Like I don't know how to put it, but I think what you're saying, yeah, like they loved us. They treated us like normal people. I just nobody had done that for a long time.
Yeah.
And we all loved those guys. And they were from Valpo. And of course that was the last year they ever went, but for political reasons that I won't get into. But yeah, that was great. So I applied to Valpo, and I still had the felony on my record.
Mm.
And I just told Valpo the truth, like everyone at admissions. I was like, hey, I'm going to junior college. I'm in a halfway house. I'm young, and I want to turn my life around. And I think God really turned me around. And if you give me a chance, I think that I can be the one guy that like proves everyone wrong. And they let me in.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got into a 4-year university like
So
that.
So that's how you end up leaving Harvey.
That's how I lived in my parents for a month, and I was like very strict with myself. I was like, I'm not gonna call any of my friends. I'm not gonna do anything. I am going to stay at my parents' house. So I literally downloaded World of Warcraft and just played that all month. I was like, I'm not doing anything else. I'm not getting in trouble. So yeah, I started going to Valpo the next month.
And so then what did you end up graduating from there? Like what happens
Oh
there?
man, I got a master's now from
From
DePaul.
so you got wait, so you
I went to Valpo and I graduated and then got my bachelor's, and then now I got a master's.
so what was your bachelor's degree in Valpo? What was that on?
So Valpo, I wanted to do electrical engineering, but it was a little more tedious than I thought it was gonna be. And by that, I mean like I imagined like I would be building like my own computer. I had no idea what I was getting into. You're really just playing with circuit boards all day, which most electrical engineers would be like, duh. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Dude, I just got out of a halfway house. Like, give me a break, but yeah, so I took like linear circuits and I was struggling, and I think that it was kind of tied to the fact that I just didn't like it. But I had to take physics, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. And I had to take math, and I was like, oh, this is awesome too. So I majored in math and physics, and unfortunately, I just couldn't pass the physics classes. Like those professors, once again, they tried so hard. They loved me, like they were really nice. And I mean, they really like I would study in their office, I would study in the lab. They tried so hard to help me. And I was just like, hey guys, I just don't think I can pass the upper level physics. I made it through sophomore year. And then I think once I started taking the higher level physics, I was like, guys, I can't pass this. So I just stuck with math, and I got a degree in mathematics.
Okay, cool. So man, and then you end up going to DePaul
I
for
went to the ball, yeah.
then so what's your master in?
Computer science. So before I graduated Valpo, it all happened at once. It had been 5 years at this point, like before I graduated Valpo. So my record was sealed. And
Wow.
then I graduated from Valpo and I had a bachelor's. I was a totally new person to the world. To God, I was always,
Yeah.
I was always
This was always the process. This
I
was
was always
always the
this
path.
way. But I to the world, like everyone saw me different. No, like I got treated so differently by everybody. Nobody said, I remember, I remember, like everyone denies it. I remember very clearly when I was younger, when I was in jail, when I was in halfway house, when I was in rehab, they said he's not going anywhere. When I got my bachelor's, everybody's like, oh, I knew he was gonna be fine the whole time. It just switched, just like a flip.
Yeah, I mean, you that's when you really learn who's in your corner. That's when you really learn who's in your corner. What people say about you when you're not at your best moment versus what people say about you when you are in your best moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, my parents were always great, but some of my family, like, they were terrible.
Yeah.
So, So after I graduate Valpo, and this is kind of like more of a normal story. I couldn't really find like a good job,
Mhm.
and the economy still wasn't very good. And just for career purposes, I picked computer science because I believe in proverbs. Like, dude, if you're super happy doing whatever you want to do, that's fine. But I thoroughly believe in proverbs, and proverbs says like, be skilled in your trade. It doesn't say find whatever makes you super happy and do that. You can be whatever you want. That's what people tell you today. I just followed what proverbs told me to do. That's what I did. And also my dad said that he sat me down and um, he said that he loved me and said that he wanted me to have a good career. And he really likes his career, and he said he wants me to make good money. So, and I respect him. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. I'll be like an engineer or something. And I'm sorry, I picked computer science because just for economical and career purposes, and it served me very well. I really like it. So
Wow. So wow, let's recap, man. You go from
I know.
you go from in a car, you're about to sell probably the biggest score you've ever sold before, to cops going to get booked in, meet the guy that locked you up, or
Oh, the
when you were
state trooper,
16,
yeah.
you meet up with him again. You end up going out to jail. So you go from jail to the
I
to
know.
the rehab house, then to Harvey,
Yeah.
the halfway house. Then you get into college, and then
Valpo, yeah, which is an accredited school. It's a regionally accredited school. It's a great school.
yeah, you get into there, and then you end up with your master's degree. So how old are you when you have your master's?
Well, that's actually kind of funny. I worked full time and got my master's for part of it. So I got a job at Motorola Solutions as an engineer at
Wow,
26.
26.
And I had worked at GM full time at this point too, which
Wow.
didn't go well because I just wasn't skilled enough. But I had learned a lot more skills for Motorola.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff I skipped, and I just want to make it clear, it's not like I was a saint this whole time and it was all this uphill trajectory and like I was perfect. No, man, we skipped a lot of stuff. I made a lot of mistakes, stuff I didn't cover in this podcast, but I also did good things too.
Yeah.
And it's just what it is.
So
So,
so now you're, how old you say again? 30,
I'm 31.
31. So
Yeah.
wow, so much has happened in your life, and I mean just a span of those, what, from 17 to about 24. A lot of craziness happened there as far as like your trajectory and how things went. But man, like when you look back on everything, right, Gianmarco, and you look at your life right now, right, and you are married to a beautiful woman, right, who serves in ministry. I know you help her as well there, and
Mhm.
you guys have a beautiful baby boy, right? And you look at all that, and looking at, like, if you had asked John Marco, who was 17, who was going on his way to jail, you asked him, "Hey, at 31, would you believe that at 31 you'll have a home, you'll be married, you'll have a beautiful baby boy?" What do you think that 17-year-old guy would have said?
He would have said something really inappropriate.
And probably would have said, "No, I don't believe it," right?
Well, yeah, he probably would have laughed at you. There's one story I want to give a shout out to. When I was 16, my grandfather is like he's a gun fanatic. I don't want to get into politics, okay? He just is. He likes
Yeah.
to hunt. That's a turkey fan. I've hunted too. And that's all he does. He took me bear hunting, and what's important at 16, and what's important is that I um I met a pastor while doing that. And this guy he was pretty nice to me. And there was another young guy my age that was 16 that was on that trip hunting. And we were out in the wilderness in like a tent, and we're taking four-wheelers to go hunt. And this is the first time I had ever hung out with my grandpa like that. I guess one of my other cousins said no, so I was like B string. So my grandpa's like, all right, come with. So I talked to this pastor, and I became friends with him like throughout the trip of hunting. And by the end of the week, we were at the airport together because Alaska's kind of small. So we were sitting next to each other, and my grandpa was off doing something, and this guy was talking to me, this pastor. This guy must have been 60. And he was like telling me advice about my like career and things like that. And he told me that he was a pastor. And I said, you believe in that stuff? You believe in God? And like, just like that. And he was like, yeah. And I just like, I called him an idiot. And I think I swore at him and like, just calmly, like just laughing at him. And he started crying. And I just like got up and left. And I never saw him again. And I remember one of my friends was a Christian when I was 17 before I went to jail. And he would hang out with me, and he really had a rough life. And he was a Christian. And I was telling him that story. I was like, don't you ever preach to me, because I will make you cry. I made a grown man cry. And he just looks at me and he just says, wait, what? I was like, I'll make you cry like I made the old man cry. He's like, no, man, I don't think he was crying because you made fun of him. I was like, what? He said, I think he felt sorry for you. I had never been so angry at what someone said. I was like, sorry. Sorry about what? Why would he be sorry? He's like, because he thinks you're going to hell. And I was like, well, I couldn't process it. I never hung out with that guy again. I still have never talked to either of them since. But I remember when I was in jail, I thought about that guy. I still think about him. He's probably passed away, but I still think about that guy. You never know what you say or do, how it's going to affect someone. That guy never will. I mean, he'll know in heaven, but he'll never know in this life what he did. He'll never, ever.
The best.
He'll never know.
That's insane that the best thing that guy could, like, everything you were saying, like, he could have got defensive. He could have came back at you. He could have said whatever.
He started crying.
Just started crying. And that impacted you more than he would ever know. And I think that was, I think that God, when God comes, God chases after us, right? He pursues us. And I think that when he does that, like, he lays the groundwork for that, right? And I think that the last question I want to end with is this, like, looking back at this now, looking back at your life, and I think that through this conversation is giving you the opportunity to kind of look back at your life here. Have you been able to see like God's faithfulness through it all, even when you didn't believe in him? Have you been able to see like God's faithfulness every step of the way?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of times when my life was in danger, or like I was exposed to things. Like one time I was really close to a guy with AIDS that was dying from AIDS, and I didn't get it. Like just things like that. And yeah, it's hard to talk about because I was pretty arrogant. Like I really do like get cocky sometimes. I mean, a lot. And it really, like, pride is a really nasty trait to have.
Yeah.
And I think I do see it. I think that I if anything, I see like how blind I was to it in the past. And now I'm glad I have a wife that's Puerto Rican and will not hesitate to tell me when she doesn't like something. So
yeah, this is very true.
yeah.
I am also married to a Puerto Rican woman, so I know what you're talking about. But man, I look at your story, Gianmarco, and I just look at everything, and I'm just like, man, I just can't help but see God's faithfulness. Even when you're 16-year-old and this 6-year-old pastor is there hunting with you, and you tell him what you tell him, and and his response like is so Christ-like. It just cries. Like, you know, when you look in the Bible and Jesus is told about his friend Lazarus dying, and he just simply just says Jesus wept. The shortest verse in the Bible, 2 words, Jesus wept, right? And you kind of see that, and then you kind of see, all right, 17, right? This, you're gonna get caught up in this thing that's gonna get you put into jail, right? That's God's faithfulness. Like, he was setting the seeds for you to come into a place where you will encounter him like never before. Once you get past the soccer, playing soccer with this holy scripture and all this other stuff, like, you eventually you sit down, you read it, and this revelation comes to you, and like, you start seeing how other people are in the place where you are at, but they're not coming out of it. And all the while you go to the halfway, you know, you go to the rehab, and there's people there that are not coming out of it, but God is faithfulness is with you. And you go to the halfway house at Harvey, and you get into a really good halfway house, and you see God's faithfulness there. And now you get into like, it just goes on and goes on. And like, even now, 31, married to a beautiful woman, you have your baby boy, and your life is still before you, right? And like, God's faithfulness is just, you know, just throughout your entire life. And I think that that's one thing that I'm going to take away from your story, is just how God was just with you along the way, even when you didn't believe, even when you didn't think that God even cared or even believed in yourself. Like, God had a plan for you, and he believed in you. And wow, it's just beautiful, man.
Yeah, I guess I gotta be honest. Sometimes it's hard because, not everybody gets that chance. All the chances I got, for full clarity, a friend of mine died recently, and he was just kind of living that life, and he actually died last week. He was a close friend,
Yeah.
and I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I always tell people this, man. If you're alive, then there's a reason why God has you alive. You know, there's if and I as well. You know, I had a friend last year that lost his life. He had a battle with COVID, and he lost his life, and this young person that was healthy, and you just don't know why, and you don't know why it happened that way. And I just can think of, all right, well, you know, God, if you still have me here on this earth, then what's my purpose? And am I living to the extent that I can for you? Am I living for you? And and that's where you could just kind of fall back on, is like, all right, God, well, if I'm still here, you have me here for a reason. um but eventually that day will come for all of us, right? That day will come where God calls us home. And but until then, you know, it's, I always go back to what Paul said, you know, to live as Christ and to die as gain. You know, if I'm alive and I got God's air in my lungs, and I'm gonna live for Christ. And if I do happen to die one day, well, now I gain, right? I gain heaven. I gain to be with the Father. I gain to be with the Son. So um, yeah, that's what it all comes down to, man. But Gianmarco, man, this has been such a great conversation. I know that it's
Yeah.
going to bless a lot of individuals that hear this, either people that are kind of live that lifestyle, are currently living that lifestyle, and they're kind of wondering, man, there has to be something else. There has to be something better. So I thank you for opening your heart, and probably going down some memories that are not the greatest of memories, but I know that God has healed you. I know that God has forgiven you, and he's built you up to the person you are today. And so I'm just so thankful that you were able to share your story, because I know it's going to bless so many people. And I know it's going to only glorify God, because it glorifies what he did, and how he did the things that he did in your life. So thank you so much. Is there any lasting words that you want to just kind of leave to our listeners?
Um, I just appreciate you listening. And normally I don't tell this because I used to tell people and they'd all be so I don't typically tell this in church because a lot of people don't want to hear this. They don't like this story. They don't like that like a Christian person didn't come and evangelize and convert me and have me raise my hand in church. They don't like that I went to jail. They don't like a lot of stuff. But you know what? God didn't come for the healthy, he came for the sick. So think about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. So wow, that's a great way to end it, man. So listen, if you want to if you want to ever connect with John Marco, I don't know if you're on social media, like if
No,
people
I
want to
don't
connect
use
with, you
it.
don't use social media.
I don't use it at all. I can't stand it.
So if you want to
So
connect with John Marco, reach out to us and we'll ask your questions for you or anything like that.
I have an
Uh,
email. I can provide you with an email.
okay, perfect. So John Marco is going to send me the email. I'll go ahead and put that in the show notes so that you guys, if you have any questions or if you want to speak to John Marco, we'll have that email for you. Listen, you can always connect with us on social media on Facebook and Instagram at alovealwaysfaithful.com. You can also send us an audio message if you want. That link will also be in the show notes if you want to ask us a question, or if you want to just say, hey, you guys are doing a great podcast. We love your podcast. As always, like, share, subscribe, whatever, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. And we're going to continue to bring you these great conversations. And until next time, do not forget that God is love and love is always faithful. God bless you and goodbye.